What's the best way for you to do this? Where do you want to be?
Not leaning against the door. Down there would be fine.
Can we sit it on the table again?
That works. Front or back?
Front.
You got it?
You got it?
Yes, thank you.
You were talking about the hooded sweatshirt being one of the two items of clothing that was the wettest with the strongest odor.
Correct.
Can you tell me now, because I lost my note, where it was that the stain was that you identified as A?
Stain A is located here on the bottom, the front surface, on the front pockets.
And do you know whose blood that was?
Iris got a partial DNA profile, and that matched Trayvon Martin.
Did you exclude George Zimmerman from that?
Yes, it's a single source DNA profile, so when I match that to another individual...
I'm sorry, it's a single source DNA profile, so I match that.
When I match a single source DNA profile to an individual, that other individual is then excluded.
And you don't know, of course, how it came to be there, just that, in your opinion, that was a single source DNA sample or DNA from blood from Trayvon Martin.
When I test a blood stain, I have no way of knowing. There's nothing in my testing that tells me when or how a stain got on an item.
For example, it could have transferred from blood on some other part of the shirt, depending on how the shirt may have been positioned at different points in time.
Potentially, yes.
Let me grab that chart. Maybe that will help me better be more precise. Was there any other blood? Stain D. Where is stain D?
There was A, B, and C on this item. B and C are on the back.
All right, that's my confusion. Is this what's known as the gray sweatshirt?
This is the hooded.
Now I'm really disoriented here. What stains are on the front, and who are they from?
A, partial profile matched Trayvon Martin. B and C are on the back.
And whose are B and C, if you
B
know?
tested negative for the possible presence of blood. Performed no DNA testing on that. C, I obtained positive for the possible presence of blood. No DNA results were obtained from that.
So the only stain on the outside, or the gray hooded sweatshirt that you could match to a DNA profile is A on the front?
Correct.
And were there any other stains where there might have been a partial profile that you couldn't include or exclude Trayvon Martin or George Zimmerman?
No, the only stains I got tested for DNA were A and C.
Mm-hmm.
In C, I got no DNA results. I did swab as I explained earlier, the sleeves and cuffs of this item as well.
Tell us again I know what your process was. You just swabbed it basically from the elbow down to the cuff.
Yes.
Not having seen any blood, correct?
Correct. I first used the filter paper to rub it and test that for the possible presence of blood, and that was negative on both sleeves.
Mm-hmm.
So I performed the swabbing, DNA testing, and there was no DNA foreign to Trayvon Martin on either of those.
Is that looking, though, if it's not blood, and you're pretty sure it's not blood, are you looking for skin cells or some other source of DNA, perhaps?
Yes, any foreign DNA that might be on these sleeves, which could be touch or skin cells, it could potentially be saliva, so anything foreign to Trayvon Martin I was looking for potentially.
Frankly, then, you just didn't find much of anything on this gray hooded sweatshirt. It boils right down to it.
Just that partial profile on stain A.
That was the shirt that stunk to high heaven.
It didn't smell good, no.
Let's go to the next item if you could. Give us a moment, we'll switch out. All right. This you've described as the gray sweatshirt?
Yes.
Let me get the exhibit number if I might, so that...
156. 156.
Oh, okay. 156. And the gray hooded sweatshirt, 155. All right, 156 has been sort of represented as the underneath shirt, correct?
Then there was no representation as far as my end. They were just two sweatshirts.
But this one was quite a bit drier.
Yes.
It didn't smell as bad, it wasn't as obviously wet.
It was slightly damp.
So, same question, sorry to be so imprecise. Can you tell me where the blood is and whose it is on the front of this gray sweatshirt?
Can I get my report?
Of
So I
course.
don't get them confused?
Of course.
All right, there were stains A through E that I tested for blood.
Let's talk with, go ahead.
Stain C tested negative for blood. I did not perform DNA testing on that one. I performed DNA testing on stain A, which was
All right.
positive for blood.
Let's talk about that a second. Is that reddish brown stain on the lower right-hand side of the shirt?
Yes.
Pretty visible, I take it?
Yes.
I mean, it was obvious to you that that was a stain that would be of interest to you.
Yes.
And there's a small hole in it. Is that the cutting that you took?
Yes.
Basically, that's all you thought you would need to get a positive reading on that stain.
To get a complete DNA profile, hopefully. Yes.
Again, you don't know how it came to be there, but you know it was there when you saw it.
No, I don't know when and how.
And whose blood is that?
That I obtained a complete DNA profile which matched George Zimmerman.
Is that a single source?
Yes.
Only George Zimmerman?
Yes. There was the possibility of additional contributor to that profile in stain A, and what that means is there was a very, very small amount of potential DNA that wasn't even high enough for me to be able to interpret. So I did report out that there was the potential of additional contributor. However, that's nothing that I could ever make a comparison on. It's just a couple little blips, we call them, that I had to report out.
Okay. Continue if you would.
Stain B, I also tested, and that was a complete DNA profile as well, and that matched Trayvon Martin.
Where's B located?
B is also on the bottom, small stain.
More in the center.
Yes.
When I see that, I don't see any reddish substance at all in what you've circled there.
Yes,
Why not?
because I cut it all out.
So you, in your cutting, you took all of what you could see, maybe blood?
Yes, if there's a very, very small blood stain and it tests positive for blood, if I feel like I need to consume that stain and cut the whole stain out for maybe to be able to potentially get a profile to do something with it, then I do that. And other examples where there's a good sized blood stain and I don't have to take the whole stain, that's what I do.
So A is George Zimmerman, B is Trayvon Martin.
Yes.
Is that a mixed sample?
No, single source.
And let's just go alphabetically. C, you said, was negative.
Correct.
Was not blood.
Correct.
And that brings us to D.
D was positive for blood as well. That was a mixture of at least two individuals. I was not able to resolve that into any individual major or minor DNA profiles. And both Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman were both included in that mixture.
Can you look at the area that you're calling D And can you still see some staining that you think may be blood?
Yes. There's still some reddish area, reddish-brown area there.
Like you did with A, did you just get enough of that stain to do your DNA testing?
Correct.
And there are 2 spots, it looks like. No, I'm sorry, 3 or 4, aren't there? Each of those defects from cuttings that you did?
It appears so. Stain D was a very light, spread out stain, so I took what looks like 4 cuttings and combined those into 1 tube to try to give me the best, the potential best DNA profile I could get.
All right, follow with me a second. So it's possible then, I take it, what you cut here was Trayvon Martin or George Zimmerman?
Yes. Obviously, in hindsight, you know, having a mixture of DNA, maybe I could have taken, you know, 1 cutting from here and tested that separately from the cutting from here. But I mean, that's in hindsight. I don't know at the time. It looked like one big light-colored stain, so I took several cuttings and combined it in 1 tube to try to get a complete DNA profile. Obviously, knowing what I have in the end, going back to it, maybe I could have taken those cuttings separately and gotten single-source individual profiles on the separate items. It's potential, yes.
Just, for example, you might have been able to identify one or the other as from that particular cutting.
Correct.
Or from any of the others.
Correct.
But by doing them all at once, you got a full view of the DNA in those cuttings.
Correct.
And then you were able to determine that it was a mixed sample,
Yes.
and it was both Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman?
They were both included in the mixture.
That's D. Anything else on the front?
Stain E.
Yes.
Also
That's
positive for blood,
under the left armpit?
and that matched, complete DNA profile that matched Trayvon Martin.
I know that you also talked about the sleeves.
Yes.
You didn't see anything on the sleeves that you thought was obviously blood.
Correct.
Nothing that you would use filter on because you saw a spot.
Correct.
So tell me again what your process was?
I took a piece of filter paper and rubbed the entire lower part of the sleeve and cuff, and that tested negative for blood.
And that's separately
Yes, both sleeves separately.
or negative?
Negative.
So what's next? What can you do next for non-blood DNA?
Just take a cotton tip swab and swab it for any foreign DNA. That would be touch skin cells or potential saliva.
So let's talk about the left and the right. Just start with the left. What were your findings there?
Left sleeve or cuff. I did get foreign DNA to Trayvon Martin. However, they were limited foreign results that I could not match to anyone, and I was not able to determine if George Zimmerman was a foreign contributor to that sample.
Is that, as you said before, you can't say he was or can't say he wasn't the contributor of that DNA?
Correct. It's an in-between state.
So it could have been, you just can't say it was.
I wasn't able to exclude him.
And how about on the right sleeve?
I was not able to get anything foreign to Trayvon Martin on the right sleeve.
Does that mean you were able to find DNA that was attributable to Trayvon Martin?
Yes.
But you were looking really for DNA that wasn't?
Correct.
Anything else on the front?
No.
And let's just take a look at the back. I don't remember there being stains on the back, are there?
No.
Just display this for a moment, and then we'll take it back. Mr. Gorgon, looking at the back here, there's no cuttings, no markings. Can't quite help these days. Nothing here that
There
you
were no
analyzed.
No cuttings that I took from the back.
Great. Okay.
ahead and take it.
And I do want to talk with you, though, briefly about George Zimmerman's outside jacket, the orangish-red jacket.
Yes.
Without going through all of the samples that were George Zimmerman, were there any spots on that outside shirt that were or could have been Trayvon Martin's blood?
On the orange jacket? Yes.
And let's do this one more time. You can point that out. The witness may step down.
Yes.
Thank you, Judge. Let's just have you focus on the stain or stains that were or could have been Trayvon Martin's.
The ones I matched or included Trayvon Martin on?
That you matched or couldn't exclude.
Okay. Stain E, which I don't believe is on the front. Stain N, which is on the front, located right here on the front right shoulder. That was a mixture. That was the mixture that I was able to resolve a major as well as a minor contributor. The major contributor matched George Zimmerman. The minor contributor matched Trayvon Martin.
When you say major and minor, you're talking about more from one, more blood from one than the other?
Well, more DNA from one than the other. Major would be the more DNA, minor would be the lesser DNA.
Can you still see some of the staining from N that you talked about on the jacket?
Yes.
The cutting that you took in the same fashion you'd done before was a visible stain that was positive for blood with the filter paper rubbing,
Yes.
and is representative basically of what you thought you would need to get a reliable DNA result.
Yes.
You didn't test any of the other specific spots.
The whole stain was rubbed with the filter paper for the blood test.
Right.
But
Just-
as far as the DNA testing,
Mhm.
these were the two cuttings that I took and put in a tube. There's one clearly visible, and there's actually one on the interface, so to speak, between the two colors.
So sort of like stain D, I
Yes.
think. Looking back, you may have chosen to make separate cuttings within the larger stain, but in this case, the DNA results were a combination of both of the cuttings.
Correct. It's possible that one cutting was one, could have been an individual profile in this one, but it's possible they both would have been mixtures, regardless of whether I tested them separately or together.
But there's no question in your mind, as an FDLE DNA analyst, that that was a mixed stain that contained both the DNA of George Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin.
Both profiles matched the two individuals.
Anything else on the jacket that relates to that it was Trayvon Martin's blood or that he was not excluded?
Stain U, which is right here, if you can see on the bottom of this cuff. That's stain V here, but on the bottom is stain U. That was also a mixture.
The right cuff, am I correct?
That is the right cuff. That was also a mixture of DNA that Trayvon Martin was included as a possible contributor. And I did not make any determinations on George Zimmerman to that specific stain.
Same sort of technique, you rubbed it and
Yes.
then made cuttings?
Yes. Stain V, which is right next to stain U. That one was too limited for me to be able to make a match. However, I was not able to exclude either of the two individuals.
V could, from the limited information we had, could have been Trayvon Martin. You couldn't say it wasn't, but you can't say it was.
Correct.
V is represented by this larger circle with the 3 separate cuttings?
Yes. That's it for the front.
Okay. Maybe just flip the exhibit. Now we are looking at the back of the jacket in Exhibit 151.
There were two on the back. I was not able to make a determination if Trayvon Martin was present.
Excuse me a moment, I'm just going to pass. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, go ahead.
Stain E, which is right up here on the back of the right shoulder, the right-hand shoulder, with the 2 cuttings. That one was a mixture where I was able to resolve a major. I matched that major, complete major, to George Zimmerman, and I was not able to make a determination or exclude Trayvon Martin. And then the last one was stain double B, which is also here in between the 2 colors. That one was also a mixture. That George Zimmerman was included in that mixture, and I was not able to make a determination on Trayvon Martin or exclude him.
Okay. Is that it?
That was it.
We'll put this back. You may take your seat, please. Thanks. Your Honor, if I may have just a moment, I'm nearing completion here.
Yes, you may.
Looking for, thank you, Mr. Gordon.
Thank you. Redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. What's been identified as the defendant's hooded, or I'm sorry, jacket, the red jacket, red and black jacket?
Yes.
The one you just talked about. You mentioned exhibit stain U, I think it was,
Yes.
and you mentioned that you said the right cuff, right? Did I get that right?
It was on the right cuff, the bottom of the right
Okay.
cuff.
And you said Trayvon Martin could be included as a possible contributor, correct?
Correct.
Okay. May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
Okay. Let's assume I'm wearing that red jacket, correct?
Okay.
And so you're saying on the right side, right here, some of Trayvon Martin's possible DNA is there, right?
Potentially, yes.
Potentially. I'm just saying he's included as a possible, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So if you're Trayvon Martin, may I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes,
And I promise I won't hit you.
I'm sorry, there's an objection.
To a hypothetical with the witness beyond the scope of cross that is asking this witness to speculate about an area for which he said he has no expertise. He's a DNA analyst, not a...
Okay, that's a speaking objection.
Yes, ma'am.
So if you want to approach, you may do so.
White jacket. You're saying on the defendant's jacket, or George Zimmerman's right jacket, correct?
The right arm. of the
I'm
jacket,
sorry,
yes.
right arm on the cuff, you said, there could be Trayvon Martin's DNA, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so that had to have, if it was Trayvon Martin's potentially, it had to have come into contact with Trayvon Martin, correct?
Objection. This witness is not qualified to answer that question because of all sorts of
Okay,
other...
no speaking objections, but he could testify if he knows.
In other words, that had to be deposited if it was Trayvon Martin, so if he's included as a possible, it had to get there somehow, correct?
It had to have come into contact with some kind of bodily fluid
Of
from
Trayvon Martin.
Trayvon Martin or skin cells from Trayvon Martin.
Right? Correct?
Correct.
And I think Mr. West asked you twice, you don't know what you don't know, right? Remember him telling you that?
I don't know, yes, correct.
Okay, in other words, there could be a rat right under this table, but you don't know, right? That would be pure speculation,
Correct.
right? Unless you came down here and looked and saw a dead rat or did see a dead rat, right?
Correct.
But what you can unequivocally say as to the defendant's jacket, that in his right cuff, or, I'm sorry, Zimmerman's jacket, there could be, potentially, there's DNA there, and it could be Trayvon Martin's.
He was included.
He was
in the-
included as a possible. I apologize.
He was included in the mixture I obtained from the bottom of that right cuff.
Now, how it got there, you don't know because you weren't out there.
Correct.
Could be from all sorts of possibilities.
Correct.
But definitely, it made contact with potentially Trayvon Martin's DNA.
Objection. That's a confusing question, if nothing else.
Okay, do you understand the question?
Yes.
Then you may answer.
Please.
He is included as a possible contributor And if his DNA is, in fact, part of that mixture, it would have to come in contact with some kind of bodily fluid or skin cells for me to have been able to get that result from that swab or a cutting of that cuff.
And you also go, still focusing on the red and black jacket, you also said to stain U, I think? Or did I cover, I'm sorry, stain R? Did I get that right, or have I got?
No.
I'm sorry, stain U was the right cuff. If I got that right?
Stain U was the one we were just talking
Right,
about.
but it's the right cuff, meaning right here, right cuff, correct?
Right cuff on the right hand.
I'm sorry, on the right
Yes.
hand, I apologize. And I think you were also asked about the victim's, Trayvon Martin's hooded sweatshirt, the one that, assuming he wore that over, the regular sweatshirt.
The dark gray hooded
Yes,
sweatshirt.
with the hoodie,
Yes.
correct? Now, did I understand you correctly that you examined that and you did not find any of George Zimmerman's DNA on that?
There was nothing that matched, or he was not included in anything from that sweatshirt.
So in other words, you tested, I think you said 5 different, or 3 areas, A, B, and C, and then you also tested his right sleeve and his left sleeve, the hooded jacket's right sleeve and left sleeves, cut right from here to here, and you didn't find any of George Zimmerman's DNA on there, correct?
Objection, asked and answered. Pardon me? Yes.
Right, overruled.
You understand my question, sir? I'm gonna
Yes.
repeat it. Okay. You did not find on Trayvon Martin's hooded, you tested from here to here, and you didn't find any of the defendant's DNA on there, correct? George
There was
Zimmerman's
nothing.
DNA.
Now it's been asked and answered, sustained.
And on the other parts, A, B, and C, you didn't find the defendant's, or George Zimmerman's DNA, right? On the other parts of the hoodie?
I didn't test B, but A and C, there was nothing that matched him. No.
And B was negative as to blood.
Correct.
Thank you. No further questions.
Mr. Gordon, thank you. Addressing your attention to the right cuff area of Mr. Zimmerman's red jacket. States 151.
Yes.
Your testimony is that there's DNA there that you were able to identify.
Yes.
You don't know how it came to be there, I take it.
Correct.
You don't know if it was connected with the gunshot itself, or whether Mr. Martin may have had an abrasion on his knuckle.
Objection now is a speculation as to,
Oh, let me hear the rest of the question. Go ahead and continue.
That Mr. Martin may have an abrasion on his knuckle that was bleeding, that came in contact with Mr. Zimmerman's cuff. You just wouldn't and don't want to speculate how it came to be there.
All I know about that sample is it tested positive for the possible presence of blood, and I obtained a mixture in which Trayvon Martin was included in.
Thank you.
Any redirect?
no, Your Honor.
May Mr. Gorgon be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. You are excused.
Any other questions?
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and recess for your purposes for this evening. I would like to start Friday morning at 8:30. When you're the overnight and Thursday recess, you're not to read or listen to any radio, television, or newspaper reports about the case. You're not to discuss the case amongst yourselves nor with anybody else. You're not to use any type of an electronic device to go on the internet to do independent research about the case, people, places, things, or terminology. And you're not to read or create any emails, text messages, Twitters, tweets, blogs, or social networking pages about the case. Do I have your assurances that you will abide by these instructions? Okay, enjoy your evening. Have a good 4th of July. We'll see you Friday morning at 8:30. Please put your notepads face down.